Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. And Happy New Year. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty happy to see the backside of 2020. My grandson Eli is home on leave, and since neither one of us are New Year's Eve party animals, we're having a quiet quarantine celebration at home. And I made us a special dinner. Cornish game hens with roasted root vegetables. And I'm going to show you how I did it. In the meantime, while we're getting ready, if you would give us a like and share and subscribe, we would really appreciate it. Just click the little bell in the top right. Let's get cooking. As always, my ingredients are going to be listed in the info section. Here I've got 2 Cornish game hens. They usually come in packs of 2. And I have back here a stick of butter. And because I'm serving 2 people, I have my vegetables in 2s. I have 2 onions, 2 potatoes. I have 1 carrot, but it's a big fat one. And while it's not technically a root vegetable, I've got a couple of little sticks of celery here just for the flavor. And I'm going to make a compound butter with that stick of butter back there. So I've got some garlic powder, I've got some paprika, and I've got some thyme. I'll also use some salt and pepper and a little brown sugar substitute. I've got some shears here because I'm going to spatchcock these little birds. And I'm going to start out with the vegetables because when you're cooking poultry, you should always start with the vegetables so the poultry juice doesn't get on your vegetables. So what I'm doing here to prepare this dish, which by the way is a 1-pan dish. Everything's in 1 pan. I have a big roaster pan here and I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the bottom and spread that around because I'm going to put my vegetables directly into the pan. And I'm going to make them in little piles, separate, 2 little separate piles. So when you're cutting these, and you can see I've already washed and peeled, what you want to do is cut them to a size where they will get done in an hour of roasting. This all goes into 1 pan, goes in the oven for an hour at 375. So I'm going to make some pretty good sized chunks, big slices. First the potatoes, and place them in the pan like that. Then the celery, and as I said, this is not a root vegetable, but I like the flavor it adds. Now let's talk a little bit more about possible vegetables for this so you can make this dish your own. I actually started to add some squash that I put up this summer in my freezer because I thought that would be yummy, but as it turns out, I didn't have room for that. Now the onions. You could also do this with sweet potato instead of regular potato, which I think would be wonderful, just chunks of sweet potato. You could also do a mixture of broccoli, cauliflower, onion, and red pepper, and that would be beautiful. But today we're doing root vegetables, except for the celery, because that's what I have on hand, and anytime you can skip a trip to the store, the better. So I've arranged these in two separate piles in my pan, and I'm going to use the spatchcocked hens to sort of hold the vegetables into 2 piles. Let me go ahead and put a little salt and pepper on top of these vegetables. They're basically going to cook in the juice from the game hens, along with the compound butter I'm going to make, but I'm going to get a little salt and pepper on them because, you know, potatoes don't have a lot of flavor without some salt, so I want to make sure that they get salted. Now we'll come to the compound butter. A compound butter is just your butter with your herbs and spices mixed in ahead of time. This is the brown sugar substitute I referred to. I don't ever eat added sugar at all, but I'm going to add a tablespoonful of this Sucrin Gold into my compound butter. And you, of course, are welcome to use regular sugar, regular brown sugar, but if you're eating keto, that's a no-no. So I'm going to add here about another tablespoonful of salt. And don't panic over that amount of salt. There's a lot of vegetables in that dish. We put a little salt on them, but by the time we spread this out over both of the birds, it won't be a lot. Then a tablespoonful of sweet paprika, which brings a beautiful flavor and helps bring a beautiful color too. I use a lot of paprika in my kitchen. Now I'm going to add a half teaspoonful of garlic powder. You can use 2 finely minced cloves of garlic if you prefer. Now I'm just going to mix this up with the butter brush because my butter is pretty soft. And you may notice that I forgot to put the thyme in. I'm sorry, I really just forgot to put the thyme in. But you can use thyme, you can use oregano, you can use Italian seasoning. Rosemary would be good, assuming you're not like me and forget to use them altogether. So that's all mixed up. I'm going to set it to the side and we'll start cutting on these little birds. So what is spatchcocking? Well, it's a way of cutting poultry where you take out the backbone so that you can spread the bird out. It'll cook more evenly and you can make it so that it will cook on a grill evenly all the way through. And I'm not going to cook these on a grill, but I'm going to show you how to prepare this one to cook on a grill. Now you can do this with a knife or with a pair of shears, and I'm going to start here with the knife just to sort of give you an idea of what we're going to cut. So I dried the bird off really well just to keep juices from flowing around. And you want to locate the backbone, and you're going to cut down beside the backbone on both sides. And on a bigger bird, you want to avoid the rib bones, but on a bird this size, you just can't. So I marked it just to give myself a guide for the shears, and then you insert one end of the shears in through the neck, along the backbone, and then you just cut down along the backbone, avoiding the ribs as much as you can. And I'm going to tell you, it's not as hard as it looks when I do it because my hands are very weak. And I'm finding that this bird's not fully thawed inside. But you will meet some resistance when you're cutting through bone, even if you miss all the rib bones. So be prepared to give it a little oomph. And yes, this does not follow my original guideline. So if you'll look there, you can see where you're cutting. And at this point, I'm going to shift around to the back and start cutting through that end to meet my original cut. And this is where you have to really give it some help. Some hand strength would be very helpful. Wish I had some. Just power through this last cut. You know, Julia Child had this lovely recipe where she spatchcocked a turkey and then she made her dressing like we did with our potatoes and carrots. She made a pile in the middle of the roaster. Well, there we go. I got all the way through it. The second cut is easier. I'm looking to make sure I don't have any little bone pieces there. And then I'm going to spread this out a little bit. Anyway, back to Julia Child. She made a pile of her stuffing right in the middle of the roaster, and then she tinted the turkey over the dressing. And as it cooked, and it cooks more quickly when you spatchcock it, and it's easier to serve. So once you get the first cut made, then you can spread this open and you can sort of see the little rib bones and cut that loose. And this piece of backbone, you can do several things with it. You can boil the two pieces of backbone and make some broth if you need broth in your recipe, or you can just, as many of us do, throw it in your broth container that you keep in your freezer, where you put your extra little pieces of vegetables and little pieces of meat and bone. Well, I said this was easier. I'm still having trouble getting through that one spot. But you can throw these little pieces in with your chicken bone broth or your turkey bone broth. It's just a little chicken. So yay, mission accomplished. And I'm going to spread this out a little bit, and I'm going to show you how to prepare this for the grill. So this little flap of skin you've got here, poke a hole in it when you can cut through it. You know, maybe the problem is my shears. They may be getting dull. Anyway, poke that leg through there. I'm not going to do both of them this way. I'm just going to do this one this way, just to show you how to prepare these for the grill. Cut through the other side and poke the leg through. And that breastbone up there, it will still stand up. If you want to make it just a little bit flatter, just lean down on that breastbone and break it. You can score it inside so that it will break. And we're going to tuck these little wings under. Okay, now what you've got here is a bird prepared for the grill, and you can see it spreads it out so that it will cook all the way through, cook pretty evenly, and you don't have any little bits standing up to burn. So I've dried this off, and I'm going to put a generous amount of the compound butter inside and outside. So just spread it out. You know, drying off meat before you put it into roast is an important step that a lot of people don't do. Wet meat steams instead of browning. So now we're going to put this in the pan, and I'm going to mound up my veggies a little bit and spread this little bird out over the veggies. And as they cook, all the juice and the butter and everything is going to go down through the veggies. And then we're going to generously butter the top, the outside. Now I am preheating my oven to 375 as I do this. And this is going to cook for an hour. You want to check the weight on your bird when you get it. 1 pound 2 ounces is what they normally run. If they're 1 pound 2 ounces or less, they cook for an hour. If they are more than that, plan on an hour and 15 minutes. We want to cook it to an internal temperature of 165. Gonna slice some little pieces of fresh sage. These will get all brown and crispy, and I'll take them off before serving, but the flavor and the aroma are worth it. And then into my preheated oven at 375 for 1 hour. And this is what you have. Now I'm going to stick this little thermometer, little meat thermometer. I'm sticking it in at the breast. Everything says to do it at the thigh, but that's too close to the bone in my mind. I'm sticking it in the breast, and we want a temperature of 165. And this is a tiny little thermometer, and I know it's hard to see, but it is just above 160. I moved the little pieces of sage, tint this with foil for about 10-15 minutes, and it will be ready to serve. And please take note here, I only have 1 pan to wash. That's not bad for holiday dinner. Now I'm going to plate this up, and this is a dinner that takes a platter. and I'm going to explain to you why I'm using this old beat-up platter. Quick story. When Fred and I got married in 1966, I had a part-time job at a little restaurant, which, yes, I started way back then. And we didn't have a big wedding with gifts and such. We had nothing. We just decided one day we were going to go get married. And we did. And because we had nothing, the restaurant where I worked gave us a set of dishes. And by a set of dishes, I mean 2 plates, 2 platters, 2 bowls, just enough for us. And this is one of those platters, and I still have it. So this turned out to be a wonderful New Year's Eve dinner. The meat is juicy and tender. The vegetables are just infused with the flavor of the juices from the meat and the compound butter in one pan to wash, which is always a plus. I hope when you want a quick and easy, sort of different holiday dinner, you try this, and I hope you'll love it. And I hope to see you again tomorrow.